Excuse me?
Was it Sergeant Sheridan that said that?
I can't remember who it was.
Well, it's one of these, right? It's either Sergeant Sheridan, Sergeant Ramsey, Detective Moreno, Officer George Imler, or the chief.
Correct?
So which one was it?
I don't recall.
And you didn't think to even ask somebody if they have a policies and procedures manual? You didn't ask?
Who was I supposed to ask?
Well, you wrote a conclusory statement that Boynton Beach PD does not have such a manual.
That's right.
You never bothered to check. You just wrote that. In fact, you didn't even write that, did you? Somebody else wrote that for you.
No.
No, you wrote that?
It was written for me, but I gave input into it.
Okay. All right, so are these your words, another act of egregious misconduct? Is that something you write?
Yes, I approved that to be, I put that in there. I would go back and forth. What I wanted to be put in that declaration is my declaration. I had to sign.
All right, so you said another act of egregious misconduct perpetrated by Boynton Beach was during the initial interview with a confidential informant, Mohammed Shahadi. This 3-hour interview was not recorded by Boynton Beach PD. Who told you it was a 3-hour interview?
I believe it was a couple of 3-hour interview. It was an interview that was done prior to the initial interview, and it was stated in the declarations that I read that they talked with him, then they turned around, and then they recorded the interview after the initial interview.
So tell the jury why, when you came to that conclusion, you didn't ask for a copy back then, and before you wrote this. Why didn't you ask for a copy of the actual recorded statement from that day? Tell them why you didn't do that.
Well, you get a copy of the recorded statement. It still wouldn't give me the initial interview. The initial interview was not recorded. And after a couple, 3 hours or a couple hours, then they turned around and recorded a statement from them.
You're not standing here and telling this jury that if someone walks in off the street and starts to report a crime, that you guys immediately start recording.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
That's what you're saying.
This is what I'm saying.
That happens in LA.
It happens in a serious case like this. You bet your bottom dollar it happens.
It happens in LA?
Counsel, I didn't stutter. I stated what I had to state.
So you since reviewed this statement
I reviewed the statement
this week.
this week.
No, he didn't review this one. Just so the jury knows, tell them how many murder for hire cases you've ever been involved in.
This is the first one.
So none, right?
That's correct.
And you come in as an expert in informants. Isn't it true you've only worked with 3 informants in your whole career?
No, I've worked with informants and I supervised individuals who had informants. I worked narcotics and we had informants.
How many informants did you work with?
During my career, I would say anywhere from 3 to 7 informants, and that's just an estimation.
You told the jury that based on your review of the evidence, Mohammed Shahadi did not want to be involved in this case and the cops were threatening him, right?
They were coercing him and threatening him with arrest.
Okay. Let me show you something real quick. You listened to the entire recording of the video between Mr. Shahadi and the defendant on August 1st of 2009.
Can I see what he's showing witness?
This is
Yes. Yeah, this was the totality of everything that I read.
That's someone actually listened to it and typed down the exact words that people were speaking. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. I want you told the jury that Muhammad Shahadi didn't want to be involved, right?
That's what my testimony was.
So I want you to flip to page 25.
I'm here.
Is it not true? On that tape,
Objection, improper impeachment, Judge, we approach.
Yes.
did you review page 25?
About the highlighted area?
Yeah, so basically, is the highlighted area at the bottom of page 25?
Yeah, lines
Page
20,
26?
22 through 25 on page 25. You want me to go to page 26 as well?
No. Yeah, you can flip over to 26 as well.
Yeah, the first 6 lines on that.
All right. You watched that whole tape, right?
I listened to the tape.
You listened to it. Well, it was a video.
It was audio tape.
No, it was a video. This is the video transcription, the one that you said you watched between the defendant and Muhammad Shahadi that you just watched last week.
Oh, okay, yes, I'm sorry. I thought you was talking about the interview.
No.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you.
We're back on August 1st.
Okay.
When this one took place.
I misunderstood.
And you watched that whole video, right?
Yes.
And you know after the defendant got out of Muhammad Shahadi's car, he started to drive back to the Boynton Beach Police Department.
I don't know where he drove to.
I'm sorry?
I don't know where he drove to.
Okay, but he starts driving away.
Yes.
And he takes a phone call from a friend. And he's talking to a friend about business and about other things on that phone call.
Objection, we approach it.
Yes.
So you heard that conversation with him. He was on the phone, right?
He was talking to somebody.
Right. And his words to that person, and I'm going to quote his words. Go ahead and look at it and follow along. Other than the first word that says how, you would agree that it's probably now instead of how?
I can agree with that.
Right. So this is from Mohammed Shahadi's mouth on August 1st of 2009, supposedly after he was threatened to cooperate with the police, threatened with prosecution. He says, now they're following me back to the police station so they can unwire me, take the evidence. And then there's a male speaker, 4, and it's inaudible. Is that correct?
Correct.
And we have male speaker 2, which again is Mr. Shahadi. And he says, I can't. I'm not going to be able to sleep knowing that. He's then cut off by male speaker number 4. It says inaudible. Is that correct?
Oh, you on page 26?
Page 26 on the top.
Okay.
You follow along?
It says, I said I'm not going to be able to sleep.
That. Knowing that, right?
Okay.
And then male speaker 4 cuts him off and it's inaudible again.
Yes.
And then it says, Mr. Shahadi again, I said, I'm not going to be able to sleep knowing someone's going to get killed, you know. I have to get it off my chest, you know. Is that Mr. Shahadi's words on that tape?
You know, you saying something about I'm not reading what you're reading in this document, because you're saying
You want me to read here?
no, I can read. I'm
Okay.
very.
Go ahead and read it.
I said I'm not going to be able to sleep knowing someone's going to get killed. You know, I have to get it off my chest.
You know.
You know.
That's out of Mr. Mohammed Shahadi's mouth, right?
It says male speaker 2. It doesn't say his name.
Well, you heard the tape.
Yes.
Who was saying that?
It was Mr. Mashadi, but you know, Shahadi. But you asking me, does it say his name there? It says male speaker 2.
Absolutely. I'm just saying you saw the tape. You know who was talking. Right?
Yes.
What piece of evidence that you reviewed of anybody other than deposition of Mohammed Shahadi that said that somebody threatened Mohammed Shahadi to participate in this case?
That was what he stated, I believe, in his deposition. And again, based upon that and him being involved in this event, in my opinion, like I stated earlier in my testimony, was a violation of department policies and, in my opinion, tainted this investigation.
Great, I'm glad you said that again. That's not what my question was. My question was, what other piece of evidence, besides what he said in his deposition, showed that somebody threatened him at any time during this investigation? What one other piece of evidence that you can show this jury? Show them one.
That's it.
That's it. So nothing. Is that right?
That's it.
Not a thing. Not a telephone call. Right?
I said that's it.
Not a text message.
That's it.
Not a recording of anything.
That's his
Not another
deposition.
deposition.
That's it.
Not a police report.
Overruled.
Right?
Correct.
Not a thing.
Correct.
Did you know, and I know you know this, Mohammed Shahadi had a lawyer at the time. He had a criminal defense lawyer.
I believe he did.
And he was able to call his criminal defense lawyer and go over the confidential informant packet with him before he signed it.
Objection to statement of fact. Can we approach it?
May I approach?
You know Mr. Shahadi spoke with his attorney, Ian Goldstein, that night, July 31st of 2000.
I don't know when he spoke to the attorney or anything else. I just knew that he had an attorney. There was an attorney involved. Not involved, but he knew he had an attorney.
Did Mr. Shahadi say he never read the agreement?
I can't recall that.
Well, you read his depo, right?
I did.
You remember him saying in his depo that he actually read it?
I said I don't recall.
Let me show you. Just a couple things in his depo. Just want to go over with you.
Sure.
So, just to flip to the front. this be the same deposition you looked at of Mohammed Shahade?
It appears to be, yes.
On page 122 of that, was there a question?
Yes?
Did you review around the highlighted area?
Yeah, this was dealing with the media contacting him, and he talked to his attorney. It's nothing to do with, this has nothing to do with signing confidential information.
All right, flip to the.
I mean, the confidential reports.
Oh, I have the wrong pages. All right, I'll go back and I'll find them. I just highlighted the wrong pages. But you knew that he had a criminal defense attorney who represented him at the time?
Now that I've read what you gave me, it was dealing with the fact that the media was calling him, and he called his attorney about that.
All right, forget about what I showed you. You knew at the time that he had a criminal defense attorney that he had access to, that he actually called and spoke to.
He had an attorney. I don't know if it was a criminal defense attorney or not. He had an attorney.
All right. If he was a local criminal defense attorney who specializes in criminal law, that would be the appropriate attorney for him to talk to about the confidential informant agreement, wouldn't it be?
Again, what you showed me wasn't, you didn't contact him about the confidential informant. You contacted him about the media contacting him.
Okay.
So you took that out of context.
You told the jury that because Mohammed Shahade reported that there was domestic violence to the police on July 31st, that there never should have been an investigation. They should have immediately went over and talked to Ms. Dippolito about this domestic violence, right?
You're mischaracterizing my testimony.
All right, what said.
I said that the issue of domestic violence came up, and they should have went over there and corroborated that and do a welfare check. And if there was a domestic violence going on, to make that investigation and take the proper reports. And I say nothing about this initial case.
Okay. Did you review the text messages between the defendant and her lover that was going on in July? Were you ever given a copy of the text messages between Ms. Dippolito and her lover that were going on at the time this crime was going on?
No.
That might be important to know what she's communicating with her lover about this crime.
Well, again, I didn't receive any information.
Might it be important?
Once I look at it and put it in context, yeah.
So if Ms. Dippolito is telling her lover to make a false allegation to the probation officer about Mike Dippolito causing domestic violence to her, would that be something you would want to know if you were a detective?
Overruled.
That'll be something that would be pertinent to the investigation, yes.
You also said that Mr. Shahade told the police officers on July 31st of 2009 that she was the victim of domestic violence, right?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to go ahead. I want you to explain to the jury. So, and you listened to that whole statement right here, right?
The second half of the statement, yes.
What do you mean the second half? What does that mean?
The first half wasn't recorded.
All right. So you listened to the recorded statement.
That's correct.
And you're telling the jury that he said to them that there's a serious case of domestic violence with Ms. Dippolito, right?
There was a case of domestic violence.
You heard it with your own eyes.
I can't hear with my eyes.
I mean, you heard it with your own ears, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's go through. Let's go through it together. Come on up there. This is a transcript from that statement on July 31st, 2009 with Mohammed Shahade?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right, let's go. Let's pull it over here so we can do it together. When you listen to the statement, were they discussing Miss Dippolito's contact with a Palm Beach Gardens police officer about this domestic violence issue?
I have to read it because you sometimes you take things out of context.
Tell me when you're ready.
Okay, what's your question?
Does that change your opinion about
About
this?
what?
About the truthfulness of this allegation about domestic violence?
Well, no, there was some issue about domestic violence. They need to talk about that and investigate. And if there isn't, there isn't. If there is, then there is.
All right, so you read it?
Yes,
And that's what you heard on the tape, right?
yes.
All right, let me read it to you. You can explain to the jury why this is not a false allegation. And then basically she tried to lie to Officer Robert, to Detective Robert, and say that her husband was beating her, and that he was selling drugs, and he's on probation, and that there's drugs in his truck at the gym every morning. And further she goes, and this is another answer of his. And Officer Robert asked her many times to come in and speak to him. She wouldn't because she said she is scared for her life. It was all a lie, because I even told Robert that she tells me that he's the nicest, sweetest nerd, but she can't stand him. He would never lay his hands on her, but he gets temper tantrums because he's on steroids. And if he doesn't work out, he just gets really loud. But
Objection, Judge, we approve.
Yes.
and let me just finish. But he's never laid his hands on her or anything like that. You remember him saying that on tape to the police?
I do.
And that's the facts that were before the Boynton Beach Police Department on July 31st of 2009 about...
Miss Stacy Evans, Your Honor, may we approach?
And that's the information that was before the Boynton Beach Police Department on July 31st, 2009 about domestic violence, isn't it?
Well, I think he went to another agency before they went to Boynton Police Department, but that was, let me finish. But that was what was stated to them during the course of their interview.
Anything else in there? Because you heard the tape. Anything else in there?
Ask me the questions.
Well, is there anything else in there about domestic violence that now Mohammed Shadi said, hey, I was just kidding about her lying about the domestic violence and trying to use it as a weapon. That was a joke. She's really getting the snot beat out of her. Is that in there?
No.
So you told the jury Detective Moreno is harassing Mohammed Shahade. He's threatening him. He's doing all kinds of improper things to violate his rights, violate her rights, violate directives, violate office policy, and break the law. Is that true? That you told the jury?
I told the jury my testimony was that you can't, it was, Muhammad was coerced, he was threatened with arrest if he didn't go through with this. And you can't do that, and based upon the policies and procedures, he should have been deactivated as an informant at that time. That was my testimony.
All right. Did you know from reading police reports and investigating this case that Mohammed Shahade voluntarily came back into the police department 5 days after she was arrested on August 10th of 2009 and gave another recorded statement? Did you know that?
No.
You did.
Objection, Judge, speculation, personal knowledge, no personal knowledge.
Overruled.
Take a look at that and read it and see in there if he makes any allegations about the police department threatening him, harassing him, prosecuting him, torturing him, making improper calls, comments, anything like that. 5 days even after this happened. And tell the jury where it is.
You want me to read 19 pages of this?
I want you to read 19 pages.
All right.
Yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and take our afternoon break just a tad early, so we're going to take about 10 minutes. Again, if you want to go downstairs, get coffee, something to drink, that's fine. If you want to stay in the jury room, that's fine, as long as you follow the rules. You can't discuss the case amongst yourselves, do any research, or listen to or read news accounts of the trial. If you do want to go down, as usual, the deputy will take you down to the doors. We'll take about 10 minutes. Counsel may be seated. Mr. Williams, you can go ahead and read that over the break, but if you need to get down and go to the restroom or something like, you're entitled to get down and take a break also. So you don't. No, that's fine. I'm just saying you don't have to sit there. Once you've done that, if you need a comfort break, go ahead and take it. I would just ask, avoid any of the jurors if you see them down the hallway. Okay.
Actually, two issues. One, our next witness has to be, what are they? Right here.
Ms. Flores right there.
At 4 o'clock.
Who's your next witness?
Jihadi for child care.
I don't know that we're going to get to him this afternoon, the way we're going. Where's Mr. Williams? No, I'm sorry, the other Mr. Williams. Ms. Laurie, I mean, you're not doing the cross, but I'm sure that Mr. Claypool will have a few things to say after the cross, and so.
Looks like quite a bit left.
Yeah, so would it be reasonable to assume that we're not going to get to Mr. Shahadi this
I'd
afternoon?
like to, at the very least, it should take maybe 5 minutes, proffer some testimony outside the presence of the jury for Mr. Shihade. I have
Proffer testimony, I don't understand.
come across an issue that I brought up in a motion to eliminate. Actually, can we excuse Mr. Williams for this? I don't want, it might be inappropriate for me to.
Okay, Ms. Williams, you can take that with you if you like. That's not in evidence at this point, so you can take that and read it outside. I mean, frankly, if it's going to be a proffer, I should probably hear it from him on the record under oath and then send the jury out.
I just want to tell you what the issue is.
All right, fair enough.
I had addressed in a motion to eliminate 3 layers of hearsay in regard to the issue with this purported hitman Larry from Riviera Beach.
Mm-hmm.
The second level of hearsay that I had a problem with was the statement made from Larry to Mr. Shihade.
In the recorded statement.
Correct, and Your Honor said viewed the entirety of the statement, you did not believe that that necessarily was a statement directly from Larry to Mr. Shihade.
No, I don't think I said that. I said based on the entirety of the statement, I believe that the questions asked and the conversation was not hearsay because the conversation, obviously, anything Ms. Dippolito said is not hearsay. It's a statement of a party opponent. With respect to the remainder of the testimony, that it wasn't being offered to prove the matter asserted, but to establish the context of the conversation and her willingness to discuss the issue of killing her husband. So it was not offered for a hearsay purpose. That was my ruling and my recollection.
Well, there's three levels of hearsay there. There's the first level, which I can see is not hearsay. That's the admission from, or alleged admission from Ms. Dippolito to this guy, Larry, if he exists. The second that I argued was from Larry to Mr. Shihade.
Right.
The third was from Mr. Shihade to Ms. Dippolito, which arguably is effect on the listener. Now, Mr. Shihade has informed me that he never heard Ms. Dippolito tell Larry that she was trying to solicit him to kill her husband.
Then he can't testify to that.
Now, there's
It doesn't change the analysis with regard to the recorded statement.
because Larry ultimately told him that. So
Right.
he is, in essence, when he's telling Ms. Dippolito, in the car, hey, Ms. Dippolito, Larry told me this. There's two levels of hearsay, Judge. We don't get past that second level.
We get past it the same way. It's no different than, he's an agent of the state at that point, obviously, because he's an informant. So he's an agent of the state. It's the same analysis as if you were in an interrogation, and in order to elicit a response, the officer says, well, we know this, this, and this person told us this, and this person told us that. That all, and if it was offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted, would of course all be hearsay. But the reason it's not hearsay, the reason it's admissible, it's not offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted. It's being offered in order to establish her response and her willingness to discuss killing of her husband. Now, with respect to that statement, as I told you at the time when I overruled your objection, if you want a limiting instruction with respect to that, I will give you a limiting instruction that's being offered not to prove the truth of the matter asserted, but only to establish its effect on Ms. Dippolito and her, I don't want to go forward and say, and her willingness to discuss killing her husband. That would be too much of a comment on the case. But I would give a limiting instruction.
I just asked that the state, clearly I disagree with you on this respectfully. And I think in light of the fact that he never heard it, we have a serious 403 issue, because now the jury is hearing a very, very damning statement about Ms. Dippolito trying to solicit somebody else to kill her husband with no personal knowledge. The person has no personal knowledge of that.
Okay, again, I've gone through my analysis. I will give a limiting instruction. I will do this, though. However, before, if you believe he will not testify as to ever hearing Ms. Dippolito solicit anyone else or discuss this issue with anyone else, I will not allow the state to go into that without hearing that testimony for myself to make sure. I don't know whether they're going to go there now or not based on what you've just said, but I will not allow them to go into anything about that until there is a proffer on the record, so I hear for myself what he's going to testify to. And if he cannot testify to that, not what's on the tape, I've already ruled on the tape, if he cannot testify to that based on his personally overhearing Ms. Dippolito, then he can't testify to that. It will not come in.
So the state can't, because you're ruling its effect on the listener, the state can't ask, I want to make sure I understand this correctly, Mr. Shihade, if Ms. Dippolito tried to solicit another man named Larry to kill her husband.
I will require them to do that outside the presence of the jury. And if I'm convinced, because I wasn't from what I heard at trial before, if I'm convinced that he did not hear Ms. Dippolito say that, it will not be admissible.
Okay, and
Beca-
if you're not convinced based on that, it's not admissible, they can't, in closing argument, argue.
You're asking,
One step at a time, I got you.
no, I'll take the step you want me to take, because I think I understand what you're saying.
In closing argument, they're going to say that she
If they-
also tried to hire Larry to kill her husband.
Yeah, I'll address that right now. I understand what you're saying. And the answer to that is, if Mr. Shihade does not testify that he overheard Ms. Dippolito make statements to someone else concerning killing her husband, then they cannot argue that in that manner in closing argument, because I'm allowing the evidence in, again, for effect on the listener, the willingness to discuss it, but it's not to prove the truth of the matter asserted. So you are correct. If all we have is the taped conversation, which is being admitted for that limited purpose, if there's no other evidence, then they can't argue it for the truth of the matter asserted, i.e. they cannot argue that she previously attempted to hire someone to kill her husband, because that evidence is not being introduced for that purpose. Am I clear about this?
Yes.
Am I confusing anyone?
Though that I believe if Mr. Shihadi testified that he never was told that by the defendant, that it only came from Larry, that he would be impeached by a deposition on February 3rd, 2011.
Well, that may be.
Where
I'm
it talks
just-
about it, and he says, yeah, they told me and she told me too. So,
I don't know what the evidence is going to be. That's why I said we're going to do I'm not just going to hear the lawyers tell me. We're going to
Okay.
put Mr. Shade under oath outside the presence of the jury, and we'll hear what he has to say. And if there's sufficient evidence to put it before the jury, I will. But if he's not able to testify that he heard it from Ms. Dippolito, then it doesn't come in, because then it would be hearsay, because it's not a
The
statement.
last thing I would say is I would argue that the state judicially is stopped from taking this position. At the second trial, they argued that the basis of his knowledge, and I provide Your Honor with this portion of the transcript in my motion, was from the CD. Mr. Williams came up there and said, oh, it's true, it's in the CD, and I went into that. So, and then I'll take a contrary position.
Well, I read the prior transcript, and that's not how it came off to me.
Not the prior transcript, the portion when we approached the bench, and Mr. Williams' response to my objection.
I understand what's in there, but I heard the prior testimony of Mr.
I'm not
Shahadi.
referring to the testimony, I'm referring to the position the state took.
Okay, well, there's not an estoppel here. I'm not going to find estoppel. Okay. I don't know what's left of our 10-minute break. There's a young man here who wants to see me. Would this be a good time to do that? I'm afraid if I wait until 5 o'clock that it's going to be too late and you'll have to go to Miami. Did he want to come up and... I mean, that's what I've been told. Am I correct? Okay, that's fine. I'll come down there. That's fine. Now, the parties know this has nothing to do with the trial, right?
yes, Judge.
I don't want to get accused of any kind of part of the communication room. But this man likes to come to trial, as I understand it, and wants to. There are probably more distinguished judges you could be. Good afternoon. So you have an interest in the law? You have an interest in trials? Okay. Well, there's a bunch of lawyers here. You could talk to them too. They might give you some different opinions about it. So. That's good. That's what we ask people to do, form their own opinions. So, well, welcome. If there's any questions I can answer for you, obviously my time's limited. I can't speak about this case specifically, the lawyers know that. I can talk about the case specifically, but in general, if you want to
He
talk to
said mom is leaving for. He said there's no way we're getting past into mom and today. He wants.
Okay. In this weather, he must really like trials.
Since he was 5 or 6, we've been doing this.
Oh, really?
We saw the
The Goodman case, that was supposed to be my case too. Yeah, fortunately, Judge Colbath agreed to do it for me, so I didn't have to deal with it. I had the civil Goodman case. I was a civil. So that case is filed. Well, welcome, and like I said, anytime you have any questions, that's fine. It's not an issue. Okay, I'm going to take what we have left of our 5-minute break.
Yeah, and Judge, if we can approach it, Mr.
Let me get back in my official position.
Mr. Williams, come forward.
I need somebody. Doesn't have to be on. We may start a little bit later on Friday. I got a calendar call on Friday with about 60 cases I got to go through. So anyway, but 9:45 will be the starting time tomorrow. So I'll tell him to be here back at 9:45. We're going to try to finish this witness tonight, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Once you bring him in, I'll tell him because I want to take a break too.
And does, I guess they have no idea how long they're gonna be, we might have to change his flight, that's what we're trying to figure out. It's fine if we have to.
You may have to. I have no idea. Why don't you go ahead and bring in Mr. Shahadi so I can tell him to come back tomorrow?
Sure.
Mr. Williams thinks he'll finish today, because Mr. Williams has to try to fly out tonight. I need to know whether he needs to reschedule his testimony.
I don't. Give me a. I mean, there's. A,
Okay.
yeah. Well, I mean, we'll within my control, we'll do whatever we can to get him off the stand today so he can leave tonight.
And then I'll tell my husband to pick up our children so that it gives me a little extra time.
Okay. We're dealing with all these scheduling issues. Mr. Shadi, we're not going to get to you today. So you're going, I'm going to direct you to be back here at 9:45 tomorrow. You're under subpoena. You need to be here at 9:45, okay? All right. I mean, you may not like that, but that's the order of the court. 9:45, okay? All right. A letter that he's been subpoenaed? Sure. Yeah, what do you want for tomorrow? Sure. I'll do just like I do for jurors. I'll do a letter saying that Mr. Shadi's been subpoenaed to appear in trial and will be here pursuant to that court order and subpoena. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right. We're in recess for a couple more minutes. Okay, maybe seated. There's Mr. Williams. Do you still have the document, Mr. Williams, or is it? You gave it back? Okay. Okay, let's bring out the jury.
Jury entry.
All right, Counselor, you seated. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I realize that was a long 10 minutes. I apologize for that. We are ready to get started. Mr. Williams, anytime you're ready.
Thanks, Judge. Mr. Williams, you got to review that.
I did, yes, I did.
Is there anything in there whatsoever between Detective Moreno and Mohammed Shahadi that occurred 5 days after Dalia Dippolito was arrested that would lead you to believe that there were these threats or this intimidation or anything like that going on?
It wasn't mentioned in there.
Nothing, right?
No.
You said in your statement here, your declaration, on page 8, it says, another act of egregious misconduct perpetrated by Boynton Beach PD was during the initial interview of the confidential informant Mohammed Shahadi. There's 3 other interviews. We talked about this. It wasn't done. Go down a little bit further. It says, Mr. Shahadi later admitted at his deposition, see the bottom there?
Yes.
It's the top of the next page. that when he first spoke with Boynton Beach police officers, he did not believe that Ms. Dippolito was a real threat to her husband. After reviewing the statement of Muhammad Shahadi from July 31st of '09, do you want to take that statement back?
This is no, I'm not taking that statement back.
All right, well, let's go through it then. Take a look, start on page 13, and take your time to read for yourself. But the part I'm really interested in is the top of page 14.
You say you want me to look at the top of page 14?
You can read as much as you want in there, but I'm interested in what he said to the officers on July 31st on the top of page 14 about whether this was serious or not.
Okay.
You want to just take your
He
opinion back?
said that he was dead serious on getting, he says, that's when I decided to come to you guys, because she's really, dead serious on getting this done.
So you don't want to take back the statement that you made there?
No, because it's what he said.
That's what you just said there. He said he did not believe that she was serious. And there, did he not tell them on July 31st, 2009, that she is dead serious on killing her husband?
According to this document, yes.
You didn't review any additional police reports of Detective Moreno, did you?
Just what I received.
Okay, so you didn't review ones after even August 10th, when he had additional contact with Muhammad Shahadi, when Muhammad Shahadi voluntarily called him and spoke to him.
I don't have those reports.
Okay. Yep. Mr. Williams, you told the jury that they interviewed him, they interviewed him for 3 hours and it was not recorded. Would it be valuable to you as a detective to be able to review a police officer's report who actually documented the time that was spent with Mr. Shahadi when he arrived on July 31st of 2009 before they recorded him?
Yes,
And you would want to know that so you could be accurate in what you tell the jury, right?
correct.
All right, let's take a look at this report from Detective Moreno. And there's a little blurb, starts on the bottom of the first page, and then it continues on to the second page, and you'll see a highlighted area on there as well.
Okay.
Does that report from Detective Brown, does that document the actual time that was spent with Mr. Shahadi on July 31st before he actually went on tape?
Yes,
And tell the jury how much time?
15 minutes. I'm sorry.
Approach.
Mr. Williams, does that change your opinion?
As far as the time?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Big difference between 3 hours and
15 minutes, yes.
Yes. The last question and answer the jury should disregard.
You told the jury that, that Detective Moreno went over the CI packet with Mohammed Shahadi.
Excuse me?
You talked to the jury on direct about Detective Moreno going over the confidential informant packet with Mohammed Shahadi on July 31st.
I believe it, yeah, brief, this thing's not working. I believe briefly.
Did you know that Detective Moreno had nothing to do with this case on July 31st when that confidential informant agreement was signed?
I had no information on that.
All right. Well, do you want to take that back?
I had no information on that to say one way or the other.
Then why did you say it?
When did I say what?
That Detective Moreno didn't go over the CI packet. He basically shoved it in front of him, told him to sign it. Don't worry, you're not going to be on television. You're not going to have to testify. Why did you tell the jury that then?
I don't recall if that was my testimony.
If Detective Moreno met with Mohammed Shahadi starting on August 1st of 2009 and told him, do not take phone calls from her, do not call her, and if she calls you and you accidentally speak to her, call me immediately and tell me what she said. What's wrong with that?
Well, the thing is that if she's getting calls and if he was a confidential informant, that was the wrong direction to give him. He said he should have told him, if she calls, I want the phone calls recorded. I'm going to give you a device to record the calls so we know when she calls, but he should have directed her, not him, not to call her.
All right, let me bring up the devil's advocate of your argument there. If I give a confidential informant a recording device without me or another officer around, did I just lose control of my investigation?
No.
No. So how do you know he's recording the phone calls?
Well, you give them, you give the direction and hopefully that they will adhere to your direction. I've done this many times and you can't be there 24/7, and you give them the device, you give them your log, and you tell them when the calls come in, I want you to record the date and time and the duration of the call.
And if I give the recorder to a confidential informant, how is that, if the confidential informant doesn't want to testify, so he doesn't want to be a witness in the state's case, how is it possible that that evidence could get admitted in a criminal case without the confidential informant testifying? How's that possible?
Well, again, that's between the state's attorney and the court.
All right, so
And
you-
then when let me finish now. When the state's attorney brings the case to court, and the other side's trying to keep them away, and you trying to keep them out, and the other side wants them in, that's a determination made by the court.
So you don't know whether it's admissible or not. You doesn't want to testify.
That's for the,
Sustained.
And that's a better idea, to actually have him doing that. So he could be recording portions of it and unrecording portions of it, right?
it's a possibility that could happen.
He could record things and delete them.
Again, it's backed up with getting those phone records of both parties that are involved to corroborate what, in fact, he is putting in that log.
But that's better than telling him, don't take any phone calls. Don't speak to her, only when I'm around. That's better.
You give him instructions to take the calls, not to initiate the calls, but to take the calls.
Got it. And you knew Detective Moreno was calling Mohammed Shahadi a lot of times to check up on him and see what was going on.
I would expect that to be done.
They were talking a lot, right?
I expect that to be done.
You told the jury that you never saw any evidence of Boynton Beach and the $1,200 in evidence. Did you watch the video on August 1st of 2009?
Yeah, I saw the video.
So what did she hand him?
Hand him some money.
How much money?
I don't know.
What did she say?
I don't think she said anything about the denomination of the money.
Well, how much money did she say she was getting?
I just could testify. I don't think she said anything as to the denomination that she gave him.
You just saw this like a week ago, right?
Yes.
And she didn't talk to Mohammed Shahadi even later on August 3rd and say, if he doesn't agree to take money after the fact, then I want money that paid for the gun, and I want my gun back, and I'm going to go get people to do it myself. You don't remember that?
I don't remember that.
And you don't remember her telling Woody Jean on August 3rd of 2009 that I already gave you $1,200? You don't remember her telling him that?
No, she didn't have any money.
Okay. No, I said, you don't remember her telling him that I already gave you $1,200?
I don't recall that conversation, yeah.
Is that money in evidence?
That's money and evidence.
But you never knew anything about that,
No,
right? Because they didn't provide you that information?
I didn't see that information.
You also saw her hand him some photographs?
Excuse me?
You also saw her hand him some photographs? It's the two photographs.
Show him the photographs first.
I saw photographs.
Hang on just a second, Mr.
I'm
Williams.
sorry.
No, it's not your fault. Mr. Williams is going to show Mr. Rosenfeld the photographs.
You also saw her on the video on August 1st, 2009. In addition to handing him the money, going through photographs with him and handing over one that had a picture of the husband that she wanted murdered and had a picture of their residence.
I saw her hand two photographs, or I think it's two photographs. I don't know what they wore.
You didn't hear what they were talking about when they were going through the photos?
She just handed them some photographs, and I didn't know what photographs they wore.
You told the jury that Detective Moreno said he had to get this done in 72 hours. Tell the jury on what piece of evidence, or what depot, or what police report, or what video or telephone call that you got that information from.
I can't give you the exact location where I got it from, but from the information that I reviewed, that number, that 72-hour frame came into discussion.
All right, well, that's a pretty important thing, because that's somebody rushing an investigation, putting a deadline on it, saying, I don't give a crap what happens, this better be done in 72 hours. That's our deadline. That's really important as a detective, right? Because that would be a total crap investigation, wouldn't it?
It's an unrealistic time frame,
So
as
where-
I testified to before.
So look at your notes. Tell me where it came from.
I don't have that in my notes, I don't think I have that in my notes.
Well, tell the jury why you wouldn't have put that important information in your notes.
Because it's something that, that it's something that I would not document, but it was something that is unrealistic.
Are you telling them that that is not an absolutely critical error by the Boynton Beach Police Department or Detective Moreno to say that there is a deadline that we don't hell or high water, this is done in 72 hours. Are you telling them that that's not a critical mistake, and we should throw this whole investigation out? Isn't that what you're telling this jury?
No, I told the jury that the investigations can last 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 months, or whatever it is you don't put a time frame on an investigation. That's what my testimony was.
Then why didn't you write it down?
I didn't write it down.
Then why not? Tell them why.
I didn't write it down.
Whose idea was it to kill Mike Dippolito from your review of the evidence?
Yes.
So you told the jury earlier that having Mohammed Shahade make any phone calls to the defendant, or having Woody Jean make any phone calls to the defendant, was coercive in nature, right?
No, my testimony was that they should not have made any phone calls to Mr. Dippolito.
Because it could be coercive.
No, you're misstating my testimony.
Right, so what is it?
The coercion aspect of my discussion of my testimony was the fact that Mohammed Shia didn't want to be involved in this, and that he was forced to be. That's where the coercion aspect came in, and from everything that transpired from that point on, in my opinion, was tainted.
No, that's not what I'm asking you. You said to the jury that Mohammed Shahade should never have been making calls to the defendant. Didn't you testify to that?
That is what I testified to.
That's where I'm going.
Okay.
You also testified that Woody Jean, the undercover officer in this case, should never have made any phone calls to the defendant.
That's
right?
exactly what I stated.
Because that could be coercive.
No, I said they were transferring that. In other words, they put information into the person's mind that may have not already been there. That was my testimony.
Got it. So after your review of the evidence, tell the jury whose idea it was to kill Mike Dippolito.
Overruled.
Based upon the reports that I reviewed, that's why Mohammed Shahadi came to the police station based upon that information.
No.
I'm going to answer your question. That Ms. Dippolito stated that she was going to kill her husband.
No, I'm not asking that. I'm asking, based on your review of all the evidence that you got there, whose idea was it in this evidence, in this case, to kill Mike Dippolito? Whose idea was it?
Yes. All right, Mr. Williams, would you just do me a favor when you're testifying, make sure you're close to that microphone there so we can, it's not working.
Oh, no.
It's working, it may not be working as well as it should.
Okay.
Sometimes it works.
Okay, now it's working.
Okay.
Okay.
You talked to the jury about the defendant not bringing a key on August 3rd was critical.
That's what he met with the
With the confidential informant. I mean, with the
undercover officer. Yes,
bring a key.
that's correct.
So tell the jury what she said to the undercover officer about why she didn't give him a key.
I think there was some discussion about security. There was some discussion about leaving the door open. There was a lot of discussions about different things that could transpire without the key.
Right, and prior to her meeting with Witty Jean on August 3rd of 2009, did she speak to Mohammed Shahade and express great concern about giving a key to this unknown murderer when she met with him later that day?
I can't recall. I vaguely remember some discussion on that, but I just can't recall the specificity.
You don't remember her telling Mohammed Shahade, probably I think in this call at 3:08 p.m., that he wanted her to bring a key and $3,000, and she didn't want to give him a key because what's to say they just don't rob her house and steal all her stuff from her house? You don't remember her saying something like that?
I do remember that.
You do or don't?
Yeah, I do.
You do.
Yes.
So there's a really good reason in her mind why she doesn't want to give a key to this hitman who she doesn't know. Is that true?
You can make that assumption, yes.
You're the detective.
Yes.
You said it was critical that she didn't bring the $3,000, right?
What do you mean, critical? When she met with the undercover? Yeah, she didn't bring the key or the money.
Do you know in the state of Florida that you're not required to pay somebody for solicitation of her murder?
Yes.
Did she explain to Mohammed Shahade shortly before she met with Witty Jean why she didn't have the $3,000 to be able to pay him that day, the $3,000?
That recording, that information was not recorded. That was a meeting in Chili's, so I don't know what she said.
Really? So you don't remember on this call at 3:08 p.m. when she spoke to Mr. Shahade that was recorded, and she said to him that she can't keep pulling money out because she just doesn't have it. She spent so much money already, and if he's not willing to get paid after, like you originally told me back on August 1st, when we first met, then I want my gun back that I paid for, and I'm going to go get my own people to do this. You don't remember her saying that?
I remember this discussion about her didn't have money to keep on pulling out the bank.
And you don't remember her when she met with Witty Jean saying that you caught me off guard, and she was talking about the money catching him off guard because she didn't have the ability to go get the $3,000 that day because she thought she had to pay the money after the fact, which is actually true because that's what she said on August 1st, 2009 with Mohammed Shahade.
I don't recall. I don't recall that conversation with the undercover officer.
How much effort did you go into reviewing this evidence?
I put some effort into it. Yes.
You said it was also really important that she didn't provide Witty Jean with the alarm code, right?
I don't know if I testified to that, but she didn't provide him with the alarm code.
You didn't, right?
She did not.
And tell the jury why she didn't provide him with the alarm code.
She wanted to, she didn't want to do that. She wanted to leave the door unlocked. I think there was some discussion about that, and I guess a different variation of an approach to the incident.
Wasn't she concerned that Witty Jean, if he had the key, that Mike Dippolito would actually?
Rephrase the question.
When you reviewed her video with Witty Jean, wasn't she concerned on there that if she, if Witty Jean came to the house to kill Mike Dippolito, that Mike Dippolito would actually see him coming because there are cameras that capture people movement at the front of the house, outside, and the movement at the back of the house. So it would be a better idea not to have a key, to wait until Mike walks his dogs outside because he always leaves the door unlocked, and then he could slip inside and then kill him in the house when Mike came back with the dogs after the walk. Don't you remember her telling Witty Jean that it was her concern for him being able to get away with it?
Yes. Objection's overruled.
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
So, do you remember about her issue about not giving him the key to the house, the alarm code, was that she was concerned about Woody John. When he went to the house to actually kill Mike Dippolito, that Mike would see him coming. He would put the key in the door and open it. Mike's inside. It's not recorded, but he could see on the cameras inside, he could see who's at his house. And he would know somebody's coming, and he could prepare himself for that person coming into the house. She thought it was a better idea for him not to have a key, not to have an alarm code, because Mike walks the dogs every day between 6:30 a.m.
Overruled.
Because Mike walks the dogs every day between 6:30 and 7 a.m. and either walks them across the lake, right across from the house, or he walks them around the property, and he leaves the door unlocked. And that would be the ability for Woody to slip in unseen. Mike wouldn't know he's there, and then he could do the killing as soon as Mike returned with the dogs. You don't remember that?
I remember that discussion.
And that would be her trying to make sure Woody got away with the crime. It was additional help for him, so he wouldn't get caught or seen by Mike coming, right?
I looked at it as an alternative.
And you testified when you did undercover and you trained people undercover that you would try to make the suspect feel comfortable when you first met with them.
Well, you gotta play it out. There is no written guidelines for undercover work per se. You got to improvise sometimes, and you got to do what you can to make your cover work.
Yeah, just so the jury knows, there's no such thing as a script for doing this stuff, right?
No, not for that. No undercover work. No,
Yeah, you got to play it by ear as you go along.
got to play it by ear.
And how'd Woody John do?
Well, it was, in my opinion, he should, when she didn't bring the key and when she didn't bring the money, she should have says, you're not serious about this. When you get serious, give me a call and get the hell out of my car.
Even though she explained her reason not for giving him the key or the money.
Tell her she had to go.
So do you think she wasn't serious at that point in time?
That's how it should have been played.
So how did you take it when she told him that you're not going to have any problems with me, that when I say I want something done, I want it done, I'm 5,000% sure. How'd you take that? She was wishy-washy about that?
Well, again, it was gamesmanship as far as I was concerned. And then, again, she's coming from a meeting with the informant that wasn't recorded. So I don't know what was said, if she was coerced to make that statement or not. But the thing is that, as an undercover operative, I said, you're not serious, you can get the hell out, call me when you're serious.
So whose idea was it to have her husband killed at the bank in Boca Raton at the Bank of America on Wednesday morning, August 5th of 2009? Whose idea was that?
That came from Miss.
Overruled.
It came from Miss Dippolito.
And what did Woody Jean do to put those words in her mouth? Or that idea in her head?
I don't think he did anything.
I think I'm done. She's just checking to see.
Okay.
What's messed up.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, Mr. Claypool, redirect. Sure.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon.
Do you think that if the Boynton Beach Police Department heard on August 1st, 2009, that Dalia Dippolito is going to find another way to knock off Mike Dippolito, and they truly believed that she was going to do this, wouldn't you think that they would have immediately arrested her and gone and protected Mike Dippolito?
I would think so, yes.
And they didn't do that, did they?
That wasn't done.
And in fact, Mr. Williams just told you that Dalia Dippolito is making comments about a gun and she'll find her guy to do it, right?
Yes.
So if a police department truly believes that on August 3rd, 2009, do you think it's rational for them to set up a staged crime scene the next day and let her go her own merry way?
No.
That doesn't sound like a police department that believes that she's going to kill anybody, does it?
No.
All right, let's talk about,
Sustain, move on.
yeah,
Disregard the last answer.
let's talk about that, this audio tape that Mr. Williams referred you to. So now we're on August 1st, 2009. He mentioned to you, remember this is after Shahade meets with Miss Dippolito, and then he gets a phone call, remember that? And Mr. Williams says to you that he said, quote, someone is going to get killed, got to get it off my chest. Remember that?
I remember that.
Shahade never said, Mike Dippolito is going to get killed, did he?
No.
He said the word someone, right?
Yes.
And someone's plural, right?
Yes.
So let me refer you. You mentioned that you relied on Mr. Shahade's deposition transcript in forming your opinions, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams did a nice job of trying to discredit you, so I'd like to show you, with your Honor's permission, some testimony that you relied upon to refresh your memory on this case.
Yes.
May I approach?
Thank you. Deposition transcript. Mr. Shahade. Page, you look at lines 16 through 20.
Okay.
May I have that back, please, real quick?
Yeah.
Your Honor, to make it go quicker, with court's permission, may I stay closer to Mr. Williams here?
Yes.
Yeah, great, I appreciate that. Thank you. The question was, and what was he telling you? That's referring to Detective Marie.
Yes.
Okay? And Shahade's answer under oath was, just like tell her to meet at the gas station, to talk to her, tell her that it has to be done. Well, you know what? I apologize. That was the wrong. I apologize, Your Honor. I need to refer you to page, it's supposed to be page 6. And it's lines 6 through 11. I apologize for that.
6 through 11?
Right, 6 through 11. You had a chance to look at that?
Yes.
May I have that back, please? And this is testimony you relied upon in forming your opinions, correct?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Williams, I'm going to ask you some questions right now, and we're going to do what we did this morning.
Sure.
I'm going to ask you to assume that this information is truthful, okay?
Okay.
And then I'm going to ask you whether this supports your opinion in this case that Mr. Williams attacked about Mr. Shahade being pressured into the investigation, okay? I want you to assume as factually true that Mr. Shahade will testify in this case that the first phone call he makes to the Boynton Beach Police Department, he says the following. This is a quote. "I know a woman that's being hurt by her husband, and, you know, she needs help, and she feels like her only solution is for her to be dead or for him to be killed." Okay, do you have that information in mind?
I do.
Okay, does that in any way help you reconcile Shahade's comment that Mr. Williams pointed out to you on August 1, 2009? Someone is going to get killed.
Yes.
Well, tell the jury how that reconciles now.
Well, you have a person that is, in my opinion, in a domestic violence relationship, either she's going to be killed or he's going to be killed in protecting herself as it relates to domestic violence. That's how I interpret that.
I want you to assume another fact is truthful, because Mr. Williams, he did a very nice job of attacking your credibility on this 72-hour window. You remember that one?
I do.
All right, well, I want you to assume this fact is truthful and that Mr. Shahade is going to walk in here tomorrow under oath and say this. And tell me whether this supports or changes any of your opinions in this case. Assume that he's going to say, just like, tell her to meet at the gas station, talk to her, tell her that it has to be done within the next 72 hours, comma, she has to come up with the money, that I'm going to bring her a hitman. Okay, I want you to assume that that will be the testimony of Mr. Shahade under oath. Does that in any way support or impact your opinion in this case?
It supported my opinion as it relates to the 72 hours.
The 72-hour window, right?
Yes.
And that suggests coercion, doesn't it?
In my opinion, yes.
Should never be a time frame given by a detective on a hit case like this, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I want to ask you to assume another fact is truthful in this case.
All right.
That Mohammed Shahade was asked, why did you want Boynton Beach Police Department to call Dalia Dippolito? And he answered, to help her. Did you believe that when you contacted the police department that Dalia Dippolito was ever going to be arrested? No. How does that affect your opinions?
It was the opinion that, based upon that he called the department in essence to help her, and it wasn't his intent for her to get arrested, and that's how I interpret that.
And I want you to accept this fact as truthful, that Mr. Shahade is going to come in here tomorrow and tell the jury under oath that he, did you want to come into the police station? No. You didn't want to get involved, did you? No. Did you tell the Boynton Beach Police Department you didn't want to get involved? Yes. And that they made him come in within the hour. Now, how does that affect or alter any of your opinions in this case?
It doesn't alter my opinion. It shows that he was forced to do something he didn't want to do, coerced into doing something he didn't want to do.
And I want you to accept this fact as truthful, that Mr. Shahade will testify that when he first called the Boynton Beach Police Department, that he was asked, did you really believe Dalia was going to kill Mike? And he says, I didn't think she had it in her. No. Does that affect your opinion at all?
No, this shows that according to him, he think that she was going to kill him. No.
And you just mentioned a comment a couple minutes ago that his call indicated that he wanted Boynton Beach PD to help her. I want you to assume this fact as truthful in this case, that Mr. Shahade will testify. If they would have just called her and talked to her, there would be no need for this. How does that affect any of your opinions that Mr. Williams talked to you about?
Well, again, it supports my testimony, as I said earlier, that they should have made a phone call or sent a car out to find out what was going on. And if there was a domestic violence investigation to be conducted. If not, then document it and move on from there.
And Dalia Dippolito, if you assume the fact truthful that I just told you a few minutes ago,
Yes.
according to Shahade, if it's truthful, he was worried about Dalia Dippolito being dead, correct?
Yes.
Objection, speculation, and restrict the last comment.
Not contemporaneous.
Overruled.
I want you to assume the following fact is truthful in this case and tell me how it affects, alters, or does anything to your opinions in this case. That Mr. Shahade indicates that the Boynton Beach Police Department threatened to prosecute him unless he cooperated in this investigation. I want you to assume that fact as truthful. Tell me what that does to your opinions in this case.
Well, it tells me that he was forced to do something, and if he didn't do it, he was going to be prosecuted. And that, in my opinion, it taints the investigation. You don't coerce, it's illegal to coerce anyone, and it causes anything that comes from that investigation to be tainted
And I want you to
and unreliable.
Okay? And I want you to assume factually truthful, that Shahade said he was scared after the police department told him that he'd be prosecuted unless he would cooperate. How does that affect your opinions?
And my opinion is still the same, based upon it tainting of the ultimate investigation. You don't coerce, and now the investigation, in my opinion, is unreliable.
I want you to accept as truthful that the testimony in this case will be from Mr. Shahade that the Boynton Beach Police Department pressured him into going forward with the investigation. How does that affect your opinion?
It supports my previous testimony as the investigation being tainted and unreliable, and causing coercing a person to do something that he doesn't want to do, and forcing him to have an outcome that the police are looking for.
I want you to accept the following fact as truthful in this case. That Detective Marino made numerous phone calls in the middle of the night to contact Shahade to get him to contact Dippolito. How does that affect your opinions?
Yes.
Should any detective at a police department be contacting a confidential informant in the middle of the night to pressure them to be on an investigation
No.
that they don't want to be on?
No.
Why not?
Because you want your investigation to be reliable. You want it to be trustworthy under scrutiny, and you don't force a informant to do something that he or she does not want to do, and it does not add to the credibility of the investigation, and anything that comes from that is unreliable.
I want you to assume this fact is truthful in this case, that Mr. Shahade will walk in here tomorrow under oath and said he had 1 minute to look at the confidential informant packet and sign it. 1 minute. You got that fact in mind?
I do.
Okay, how's that affect your opinions in this case?
He didn't review the confidential informant file. He was just told to sign something. That's how I interpret that.
Well, doesn't that fact show you that the Boynton Beach Police Department didn't explain any part of the confidential informant packet to Mr. Shahade?
That is correct.
Sustained as to leading.
Let me rephrase it. What is the significance, if we are able to prove in this case, the fact that Mr. Shahade indicated he only had like a minute to review and sign the confidential informant packet?
That tells me that the Boynton Police Department did not go over that confidential file package with him in detail, explain to him what it all entails, and as also including the area of confidentiality where he may or may not be kept confidential in the course of this investigation.
Getting there, Your Honor. A couple more minutes. I want you to assume this fact is truthful, that Shahade will testify and will be able to prove this to the jury, that he was told by the Boynton Beach Police Department that if something happened, that's going to fall back on him. Is that, do you have that fact in mind?
I do.
How, is that in fact important to you in any of your opinions?
Well, if anything happens in this investigation, it will fall back on him because he was, in my opinion, he was forced to do something he didn't want to do, and again, it was unreliable, and the investigation was in fact anything that came from that would be tainted.
And if we're able to prove in this case is factually accurate that Mohammed Shahade asked one of the Boynton Beach Police Department detectives to simply pick up the phone and make a phone call to Dalia Dippolito, if I'm able to prove that, is that fact important in this case?
Objection, Aston.
Overruled.
It is. He shouldn't have been directed to initiate a contact or a call to Mr. Dippolito.
No, my question is, Mr. Mohammed Shahade is asking the Boynton Beach Police Department
Oh, I'm sorry.
to pick up the phone and call Dalia Dippolito. Assume that fact as accurate. Is it an important fact in your analysis?
It is.
Why?
Because number one, you're checking on her to see if she is also if on her physical well-being, if she's a victim of domestic violence, and then further, it would be more than making a phone call, but sending a unit out there to do a welfare check-in to conduct their investigations, as I've testified to before.
I want you to assume the following fact, almost done, as accurate and truthful. That Shahade is going to come in here, tell the jury under oath, that he didn't even think that there was going to be an investigation in this case. Is that an important fact?
Yes, it is important.
Okay. And I want you to further assume it's factually accurate that Shahade will say, I didn't want anything else to go on. How's that important in this case?
It shows that his lack of cooperation and the fact that he was basically, as I talked about earlier, concerned about her welfare, and they should have, again,
Right, he's more worried about domestic abuse than he is somebody getting killed, isn't he?
Yes.
Objection, speculation, right.
Sustained. Disregard the last question and answer.
I want you to assume this fact is accurate and truthful in this case. Tell me how it affects your opinions. Shahade is going to come in here and say he received threats from the Boynton Beach Police Department that if something happened to the husband, I would be blamed for it. You got that fact in mind?
I got that.
How's that important?
Well, it's important. It feels that if he didn't play the game, if he didn't follow through, that if something happened to him, that he would have been blamed and been arrested for it.
Well, big deal. Who cares? Who cares if he's blamed for it? Why is that important?
Well, it's very important due to the fact that he will do what is needed to be done to keep the alleged heat off of him if something does happen. So he will do what the officers ask him to do.
Sustained.
Almost done. I want you to assume one more fact is factually accurate in this case. Tell me how it impacts any of your opinions in this case. That Mohammed Shahade will testify to the following. When they told me that I had to make her meet with an undercover officer that was supposed to be a hitman. Key word there being, I had to make her. You got that word in mind?
I got that.
I had to make her. Right? How's that important? That's
Well,
truthful.
well, he had to, in other words, he had to force her to do something that she didn't want to do.
One last question for you. Two more points. Isn't it true that the Boynton Beach Police Department never even had knowledge? You know what? I withdraw that question. I want you to assume it's factually accurate in this case. That the Boynton Beach Police Department, none of their detectives, had any knowledge of the text messages that Mr. Williams referred to, these text messages. Remember, between Mike Stanley and Dalia Dippolito?
Yes.
I would assume that the police department knew nothing about any of those text messages before this alleged murder for hire investigation. Is that fact important to you?
Yeah.
Tell the jury why that's important to know.
Well, they didn't know, they didn't have any information, not knowing what those text messages are, but they didn't have any information to connect, if you will, this information to this crime, that information to this crime. It was unknown to them.
A couple other final questions. Mr. Williams questioned you on this affidavit you signed. Remember that?
I did.
Did I or any member of my law firm tell you to say anything in that affidavit?
No,
Was that affidavit a reflection of your work product?
it was.
And one last question. What was the date of that affidavit? Wasn't that in 2015?
It was.
From what was the month of that? You know?
I think it was November, if I remember correctly. I have it in front of me here. Let me not guess. November 17, 2015.
Okay. At any time from November 17th, 2015 until June, let's say June 1st, 2017, did the state ever attempt to take your deposition to question you?
Objection, relevance?
Sustained.
Were you ever questioned by the state in this case?
Objection, relevance?
Sustained.
And they could have, right?
Objection,
Sustained, Mr.
Thank you. I'm done. Thank you for your time, Mr. Williams.
Mr. Williams, you may step down. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and break for this evening a little early. We really don't have time to get another witness on and get much done this afternoon, so we'll give you a little bit of an early break. We're going to try 9:45 again tomorrow. We'll try that time. So please follow the procedure you have been following. Come sign in, come up to the 11th floor, meet where Deputy Cascone tells you to. You can leave your notepads here. Please do not discuss that. You know how to, you can probably repeat it for me. Do not discuss the case amongst yourselves. No research. Do not listen to or any news accounts of the trial. Have a safe drive home and a pleasant evening. We got a juror in the courtroom. Hang on. Yeah, there's been a lot of papers flying around. Let's make sure the clerk has all of her exhibits back.
And if we could really quickly address scheduling, and I say quickly because we have an officer who might have to hop on a ferry in the next 30 minutes. So, that being Bonifair from
Up on a ferry?
Captiva. Yeah, and I don't want him, if he's not going to testify tomorrow, I don't want to have to inconvenience him. So could I tell you where we're at with
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to tell me, because I know we're getting about a witness done a day, so you tell me what the schedule is.
We certainly have, Mr. Shihade, Bonifair, and Mattson. Bonifair and Mattson are quick witnesses.
Right.
I would guess between direct and cross-examination, based on last trial, 10 minutes total, probably. Yeah, if that. So it took 20 minutes for 2 witnesses. We have Mr. Shihade. We believe that we can get some general testimony from Dr. Lenore Walker, and we believe, based on testimony, we can get some testimony from Miss Susan Constantine at this point.
No, those I'll rule on at the appropriate time, but anyway, that's your schedule.
Well, that's the scheduling issue.
Well, Your Honor,
Well, let me just-
respectfully, I think we need to talk, counsel and I need to talk about whether we're going to call these witnesses, number one. Number two, if there's an agreement, we probably need to get a ruling now, because we're going to be done tomorrow, unless Shihade takes 7 hours. We're going to be done.
He may.
Well, let me just explain the scheduling issue, and at this rate, Shihade's going to take 2 weeks. Miss Constantine is only available tomorrow, and she's out of town on Friday. If we use Dr. Walker, and it's an if, she's available Friday, but not tomorrow. She gets back from Phoenix tomorrow night. She's been gone all week. Otherwise, I would have brought to Your Honor's attention and brought her in. I would have tried to accommodate scheduling for the court. So in regard to Ms. Constantine, we do need to figure that out today.
Okay.
And I guess if you want brief argument,
Well, yeah, I will allow brief argument. I've already heard her testimony.
sure, and you said there were things, they could open the door, and I'll explain where I think they opened the door.
I think, yeah, what I said was I think I'll leave the door open to a couple of things, but I didn't,
You said, the truth or veracity, you said.
absolutely not.
We agree with that, and we're not debating that, Judge. All right, let's see. Sorry, I have notes from.
Well, let's start with this, Mr. Rosenfeld. It's easier. What is it you think she could testify to in this case? That's where you start. What opinion